In a garage in eastern Oregon, late in the day, the sun is already gone. The solar panels went dark almost an hour ago, and yet the lights are still on. The freezer is still humming. The fan in the corner is still turning. Inside a steel drum bolted to the concrete floor, a heavy disc is spinning on a shaft. No fuel, no battery, just mass and momentum and a quiet hum that never stops. The man who owns this garage pays $17 a month to the power company, not for electricity, for the connection fee and nothing more. By the end of this video, you are going to understand one number, one single calculation that the battery industry would very much prefer you never sit down and work out for yourself. Stay with me, because that number changes everything. Now, I want to be honest with you right from the start. When I first read about this, I did not believe it. Nobody I talked to believed it. A spinning disc, running a workshop for 3 years on nothing but stored motion? It sounds like a fantasy. It sounds like one of those internet stories that falls apart the moment you look closely. So I looked closely, and it did not fall apart. There are people scattered all over this continent quietly building these things. One in New Mexico, one in rural Michigan, one up in British Columbia. Welders, machinists, retired auto mechanics. Not one of them has an engineering degree hanging on the wall, and not one of them needed it, because they were not inventing anything new. They were reaching back to physics that is older than electricity itself, and shrinking it down to fit inside a garage. Let me show you how old. The oldest flywheel on this earth is the potter's wheel, Mesopotamia, roughly 3,500 years before Christ. A heavy stone disc on a post. The potter gives it a kick, and the weight of that stone carries the spin between kicks. That is flywheel storage, in its purest and most ancient form. Mass at the rim, momentum doing the work. Think about that. 6,000 years ago, we already understood how to store motion in a heavy wheel. Now come forward to the 1780s, Birmingham, England. James Watt is bolting cast iron flywheels onto his steam engines, and those flywheels are smoothing the jerky push of the piston into one long, steady rotation. Every textile mill, every foundry, every workshop of the entire Industrial Revolution ran on energy stored in spinning iron. The flywheel powered the modern world for a full century before the first commercial battery ever existed. Let that sink in. And it did not stop there. 1953, Switzerland. A company called Oerlikon built something almost impossible to believe. A full-size city bus, powered entirely by a 3-ton steel flywheel spinning under the floor. They called it the gyro bus. At each stop, it touched an overhead post for 30, maybe 60 seconds, spun the flywheel back up to speed, and then drove the next stretch of road on stored motion alone. No fuel, no batteries, just a disc turning at 3,000 revolutions a minute. Fleets of them ran in Switzerland, in Belgium, and in what is now the Congo. This is not theory. This carried people to work and home again for years. Then the space program got involved. In the 1990s, at the NASA Glenn Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio, engineers built a flywheel designed to replace the chemical batteries on the International Space Station. This one spun on magnetic bearings, in a vacuum, at over 40,000 revolutions a minute, and the published results were staggering. More than 100,000 charge and discharge cycles with zero measurable loss of capacity. Zero. A spinning disc, outlasting any chemical battery ever manufactured by a margin that isn't even close. And then, before it ever flew, the program was defunded. Come forward again. 2014, France. An engineer builds a flywheel out of concrete. Cheap, dense, castable concrete, reinforced with steel cable, spun up as a rotor. His demonstration matched the storage economics of a lead-acid battery at a fraction of the material cost, with a service life measured not in years, but in decades. Around the same time, out in Union City, California, another company deployed steel flywheel units in Hawaii and Taiwan, proving the whole idea worked at full commercial scale. So let us just lay it all out on the table. The physics was proven in the 1780s. Public transit ran on it in the 1950s. NASA validated it in the 1990s. An engineer proved concrete could do it cheaply in 2014. Every piece of the puzzle exists, and has existed for a very long time. So here is the question you should be asking. Why can you not walk into any hardware store in America and buy a flywheel storage system off the shelf? The answer is not a conspiracy. It is simpler and colder than that. It is money. The lithium-ion battery market crossed $150 billion in 2025. Now, picture what a number that size actually requires. It requires cells that are engineered to fade within 8 to 15 years. It requires a steady stream of families opening a utility envelope at the kitchen table and turning it face down because the number keeps climbing and nothing they buy ever seems to last. A flywheel does not fit into that model at all. A flywheel refuses to die on schedule, and a device that refuses to die is a device that only sells once. Now, understand something. There is no villain in a dark room here. There is just incentive. There is a $150 billion reason to keep improving the battery, and there is almost no reason for anyone to advertise a spinning concrete disc. There is no marketing budget for a heavy wheel in a steel drum. There is no quarterly earnings call for momentum. Nobody gets rich selling you a thing you only have to buy one time, and the rules got written to match the money. The Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 created a 30% federal tax credit for home energy storage. 30%. But the early language of that policy leaned heavily toward electrochemical storage, batteries. So the homeowner who installs a corporate battery pack gets 30% handed back to him by the government. And the homeowner who builds something mechanical, something that lasts, has a much harder, lonelier road to walk. Go back a little further, to 2011. A federal energy ruling changed the way grid storage got paid for fast response. The new rules rewarded the fast, twitchy response of batteries and penalized the slower, steadier response of flywheels. That same year, a company that had built a 20-megawatt flywheel plant, 200 flywheels under one roof, working exactly as designed, filed for bankruptcy. Not because the physics failed. The physics worked perfectly. It failed because the rules of the market were written in rooms where the flywheel had no lobbyist and no seat at the table. Picture those rooms for a second. Lobbyists walking marble hallways, carrying charts full of factory jobs and domestic investment, all of it hinging on keeping one word, electrochemical, in every line of every incentive. The spinning disc in that Oregon garage had no one in that room. It still doesn't. So now, let me give you the number I promised. A well-known home battery stores about 13.5 kilowatt hours. It costs somewhere around $11,500 installed. Its warranty covers roughly 3,600 cycles. Do the division, and you are paying somewhere in the neighborhood of 23 cents for every kilowatt hour it will ever deliver across its entire lifetime. And at the end of that lifetime, inside a 30-year mortgage, you buy it again. A homemade flywheel, sized to bridge the evening, costs between $150 and $300 in materials. The disc itself does not degrade, it just spins. The only real wear item is a pair of bearings, and those cost $20 to $40 to swap out, maybe once a decade. Across 20 years of daily use, the cost per kilowatt hour drops so far below that battery that the two do not belong on the same page. That is the number. That is the hidden edge. And that is exactly the calculation nobody with a marketing budget wants you to sit down and do. Now let me be completely honest about what this is and what it is not. A single flywheel is not going to run your whole house off the grid. It will not sit idle for 2 weeks and then power your home through a blackout. What it does, and what it does beautifully, is bridge the gap between sunset and bedtime. Your panels fill your needs by noon, and every hour of sunlight after that would normally go to waste. The flywheel captures that wasted afternoon energy and hands it back to you after dark. You are not losing power. You are storing power that was going to vanish anyway. That honesty, by the way, is what separates a real build from an internet fantasy. Anyone promising you a magic box that replaces the entire grid for $200 is lying to you. This is supplemental storage. Done right, done cheap, done to last. Now, and this is the part built specifically for you. Maybe you are sitting in a suburban house right now. Maybe you rent an apartment. Maybe you do not own a single acre of land, and you are thinking this whole thing only applies to some fellow with a workshop out in Oregon. Do not click away, because what comes next costs under $300, needs no permit in most places, and was put together with exactly your situation in mind. Here is how a person builds one. You start with a 55-gallon steel drum, $15 to $30. You need one steel shaft, 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch across, about 36 inches long, $10 to $20. You need 2 pillow block sealed ball bearings, $15 to $25 for the pair. You need a high-strength resin and a reinforcement kit for the disc, another $10 or $15. You need a permanent magnet motor pulled out of an old treadmill, $30 to $60, and treadmills are practically given away on the secondhand market. A belt and pulley, a charge controller, a pure sine wave inverter, and some wiring, a fuse, and connectors. Total, all in, $155 to $290. That is it. The build itself is 8 patient steps. First, you weld or bolt a frame from angle iron to hold those bearings at a fixed height inside the drum, so the shaft spins dead center with no wobble. Second, you build a round mold to fit inside the drum with clearance all the way around. Slide the shaft through the middle and set your reinforcement near the outer rim, because the weight at the rim is where the storage lives. Third, you pour your dense composite mix around that shaft, tap out the air pockets, and let it cure for a full week. When it is done, that disc should weigh 50 to 70 pounds. Fourth, you mount the cured disc into the bearings, and you spin it by hand to make sure it turns free and clean, with no contact against the walls. If it favors one side, you balance it by grinding a little off the heavy side or bolting a small weight to the light side. Fifth, you mount that treadmill motor to the frame and connect it to the shaft with the belt and pulley. And here is the elegant part. That one motor does both jobs. Fed power, it spins the disc up. Driven by the disc, it generates power on the way back down. Sixth, you wire your solar in through the charge controller to the motor, and the motor out through the inverter, with a fuse and a meter in line. Seventh, you bolt a steel mesh lid over the top of that drum, and you anchor the whole frame to the floor. The reinforced drum is your containment shield, and it is not optional. Eighth, you spin it up for the first time during peak sun, watch the speed climb, then cut the solar, and measure how long that wheel keeps your lights on after dark. Now, 3 safety rules, and you do not skip a single one. The steel drum and the heavy lid are not decoration. A spinning disc holds real energy, and you want that energy fully contained, always. Check the assembly once a month for heat and for vibration. A hot bearing means something is misaligned, so you shut it down and you fix it before you run it again. And you keep your hands, your sleeves, and every loose object well away from that shaft and that belt. Give it the same respect you would give a table saw. I mean it. 2 last honest notes, so you know what to expect. A flywheel loses stored energy faster at rest than a battery does because of bearing friction. So plan on useful output for 3 to 6 hours after a full charge. That is perfect for bridging sunset to bedtime, and it is the wrong tool for backup that sits untouched for weeks. And the round-trip efficiency runs around 50 to 65%, which looks like a flaw on paper, until you remember that the energy you are storing is energy your panels made after they were already full. Energy that was headed straight for the trash. You cannot waste what was already going to be wasted. So here's what I want you to think about tonight. The technology was proven 6,000 years ago on a potter's wheel. It ran the entire industrial revolution. It drove buses, it impressed NASA, and it never disappeared because it stopped working. It got quietly pushed to the side because it does not generate a payment every 8 years. That is the whole story. Not a cover-up, just a business model that has no room in it for a thing that refuses to break. There are people all over this country, folks in their 50s and 60s and 70s, welders and tinkerers and grandparents, quietly building these in their garages right now and paying the power company nothing but a connection fee. This is one of many forgotten machines like it, and I am going to keep pulling them back into the light, one at a time. So do this for me. In the comments, tell me exactly what you are working with. Tell me whether you already have solar on your roof. Tell me roughly how many hours after sunset you actually need power. And tell me what part of the country you are in, because that changes everything about how you would size a build like this. Be specific. I read them, and I answer the specific ones. And if this changed the way you think about storing power, subscribe. Not to boost some number on my screen. Subscribe because you want to be part of the group of people taking this knowledge back, one buried machine at a time.